at Emerson Mnangagwa after the signing of a memorandum of understanding between Kenya and Zimbabwe at State House, Nairobi yesterday. It was not clear last evening whether Friday's assault on the Zimbabwean female diplomat by border borders was discussed during the meeting.
And on the Standard, on the front page, there's the hardliners, and with only 30 days remaining to deposit coalition deals with parties registrar, some political operatives are either aiding or impeding alliance building. And caught in the middle of these are rivals Ruto and Raila, who are busy wooing new allies and sealing pacts. And this story continues on page 6 of the Standard. And hardliners have existed from 2007 during peace talks to the 2018 handshake. And with about 30 days to the deadline for submission of coalition agreements to the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, fears are emerging that some political operatives may be impeding and instead of aiding the coalition. And we can see that some hardliners include one Moses Kuria, who says that he has already He says that time is of great essence here, and I have picked my jersey already, and I am moving on to the next stage. And Moses says that he might be joining the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. He also says that he's having talks with the OKA principal parties, and that when time is right, maybe they will form a pact.
Will they really?
It's a wait-and-see game. Yeah.
I wonder how that will affect One Kenya Alliance if One Kenya Alliance does not join Azimio team.
Okay, there are some rumors that Gideon might be joining the Azimio,
indeed.
no Moja.
Yes.
So let's see if Kalonzo will tone down.
Or if you bow to pressure.
Yes.
Well, it is make or break talks for Kalonzo as KANU threatens to bolt out of OKA. There are reports of secret talks by teams trying to broker a deal between Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and ODM chief Raila Odinga ahead of a meeting this Saturday in which the former PM is expected to be named the Azimio la Umoja flag bearer. Will the talks bear fruit? That is something that goes in contradiction to the irreducible minimums that Kalonzo set in order for his alliance, that is One Kenya Alliance, to join the Azimio team. So if the former Prime Minister is indeed named as the flag bearer, which is something that we think is predictable that it will happen within the Azimio team, then Kalonzo may refuse to join the Azimio team. But then again, he has already lost the support of Moses Kuria and the support that Moses Kuria would have drawn to his side. So will he decide to run for the presidency, or will he have some other strategy? I do not yet know. That is a story that continues on page 4, and it is one that we will be definitely looking at. Still on the headlines page, KCPE results to be out in 2 weeks, says Magoha. Marking began on Monday with only 3 cheating cases reported in tests. And cover up, new twist in Thika Tycoon's murder probe. Post-mortem report says businessman was shot once at close range, contradicting police findings that he was shot numerous times. That is a story that continues on page 8. The story about KCPE is at the back of the Daily Nation. If you want to get more details on the stories that we will be highlighting, be sure to grab a copy of the Daily Nation and that of the Standard.
And also on the headlines in the Standard, we have the good, bad, and ugly of Ruto's tour abroad. And this page continues on page 7, where critics have been saying that the Kenya Kwanza campaigns have suffered deficiencies in organization. That is, when Ruto has been taking his tour abroad, and also for Deputy President William Ruto, his 10-day trip to the US and the UK has been a resounding success. According to his team, he has networked successfully, met influential persons on international matters, and made friends who could potentially aid his campaign. Kelvin.
Yes.
Ruto's tour abroad has been a bone of contention in the country. And some criticize his tour, saying that he could have taken with him the Mamambogas and the Boda Boda people, the Hustler Nation. So, but it's also key to note that his differences with President Uhuru Kenyatta have played out largely on the international stage. And while abroad, Dr. Ruto openly shared his views on the forthcoming August 9 election. He alleged that the state plans to influence the presidential election through intimidation. However, there's something interesting I noted. He said that if he loses the 2022 general elections, he will accept it. And he wants the other presidential contenders to come out clean and say that they'll accept defeat.
Well, I'm not sure how that will play out, seeing as how the deputy president seems to already be setting the stage for a dispute with the results of the elections. That is by claiming that he will run parallel tallying centers to the IEBC. And we know what happened the last time that happened, which was not so long ago. That was during the 2017 elections, that led to the one who lost the elections swearing himself in as the people's president. So will the deputy president really accept the results if indeed he intends to set up parallel tallying centers, and with a claim that the state is, that there are intentions to use state machinery to rig the elections? Already he is showing signs of him not agreeing to the results announced by the IEBC. Should he not be the winner?
Well, we can only wait and see. And there's someone who was saying that you can prepare for a Ruto-Raila handshake in the future.
Or maybe a Nusu Mkate kind of government, we don't know. But then the problem with these things is the amount of chaos that come before the handshake. And if you remember the chaos that came before the Nusu Mkate government, back when it was the deal was made by the former president Mwai Kibaki and Raila Odinga. So really, I think the election period, if it were up to me, the election period would be smooth, and there would be smooth transition of power, with the one losing the elections agreeing that he has lost the elections indeed, and then we can just move on as a country. On page 4, sorry, is the KANU threatens to quit OCA for Raila's Azimio as Kalonzo dithers. KANU has threatened to sever links with One Kenya Alliance and join Azimio La Umoja should Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka fail to heed calls to join the outfit on Saturday. Now, this is something that one of the guests that we had on Hotspot a while ago said that it could happen, that One Kenya Alliance, despite the way that it chooses to go, may not stand a chance of standing together. Because if they decide to join the Azimio team, One Kenya Alliance will have to disband, because there is a law stating that two coalitions cannot merge. So One Kenya Alliance will have to disband into its constituent parties, after which it will be absorbed into Azimio. And two, if they decided not to join Azimio, that there are some parties within One Kenya Alliance that will still have an interest in joining Azimio, and they would thus break away and leave the party, and it is already being seen here. The Azimio team has planned a national delegates convention on Saturday in Nairobi, where ODM leader Raila Odinga is expected to be named the coalition's flag bearer as parties in the alliance sign an agreement to work together. Yesterday's threat by KANU came amid conflicting reports about secret talks by teams trying to broker a deal between Mr. Odinga and Mr. Musyoka. Now, as far as this goes, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka has been, I'm not sure whether to call it indecisive or that he has stood strong. He has stood firm on what he believes to be right. Like, there are some irreducible minimums that he dictated must be met. And, well, one of these irreducible minimums was impossible. At least that is what everyone on Hotspot, plus myself, have agreed on. Because he says that in order for him to work with Azimio, then the former PM has to step down as the alliance's flag bearer, and Kalonzo Musyoka has to take that role, which is something that, I don't know, in your opinion, is that something that is achievable? Do you see as if Raila Odinga will be willing to give up his candidacy and support Kalonzo Musyoka?
It's really a tough spot for Kalonzo Musyoka. But yeah, he's saying that they had a certain presidential agreement back in 2017. And during that time, it was not Azimio la Umoja. Was it called or NASA?
Yeah, it was NASA.
It was NASA. So some people think that his demands do not stand any ground. And people believe that he should not be giving those irreducible minimums to Raila. But Kalonzo is really...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Would that pact hold despite the death of NASA? I mean, is it the death that matters, or is it the alliance that it was formed in that matters? Still a question that we have not had an answer to.
Legally, they say it doesn't stand any grounds. Yeah, because it's a new coalition that they have right now.
Well, speaking during the launch of KANU's manifesto at the Kabarnet grounds in Nairobi, Mr. Salat told Mr. Moi that with or without him, that is Mr. Musyoka, we have to go, and referring to the joining of Azimio. What does this person really want? What is he up to? Chairman, please don't stick to this man for long. If he is not willing, leave him alone. Let us go. For now, for how long are we going to babysit him? With or without him, we have to go, Mr. Salat said. Those are some harsh words, at least in my opinion. They are harsh. Yeah. But then again, I do understand their frustrations with Kalonzo Musyoka seemingly to be sitting on the fence. That is he deciding to run for the presidency as Oka, or is he leaning more towards joining Azimio team? It has been indecisive. Wiper core vice chairman Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and Victor Swire said by yesterday there were still no reports of progress in talks with Azimio. Asked whether there has been a meeting between Mr. Odinga and Mr. Musyoka's teams to broker a deal, Mr. Kilonzo replied, I am not in the team. I cannot tell.
And interestingly, Makueni governor had told Kalonzo not to take confusion into Azimio la Umoja because they claim that he has taken too long to make up his mind on where he really wants to be. So I think Kalonzo getting into Azimio la Umoja will be a game changer for the coalition. It will be there are positions that they are eyeing, maybe in the coalition, and maybe if Kalonzo comes in, they won't be able to get those positions. But some have said they want to run for the senator's job, like Kivutha Kibwana. Yeah, he has said that he wants to be the senator for Makueni come 2022.
Yes. Well, but do you think that Kalonzo is justified in his mistrust of Honorable Raila Odinga?
Okay, I think he might have his own reasons. We can't judge him that harshly. He might be having his own reasons. He knows what he saw, what they talked.
Okay.
And it seems like it's a new dawn for the IEBC and heavy task for a man to oversee Uhuru transition. And this story continues on page 4, where the Electoral Commission has confirmed Hussein Marjan as its chief executive officer as it seeks to put its house in order with just 5 months to the general election. The hot seat has been vacant since October 2018, when the then CEO, Mr. Ezra Chiloba, was bundled out acrimoniously, after which Mr. Marjan took over in an acting capacity. Yesterday, the chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Mr. Wafula Chebukati, said that Mr. Marjan emerged as the best candidate out of the 5 shortlisted from about 511 applicants who had responded to the advertisement published in local newspapers in December 2021. And now Marjan has been the acting IEBC CEO, and he holds an MBA in Strategic Management from the University of Nairobi. He has a BCom in the accounting option. He's a certified public accountant, a certified information systems auditor. He's a certified internal auditor. He's really a man who has...
He seems to have
good academic,
the qualifications to run the body.
Yes.
And I think it is a positive thing, especially at a time like now when the credibility of the IEBC is being called to question by leaders such as Honorable William Ruto. But then again, that has been the trend. Every electioneering period, there are leaders who do not have faith in the body conducting the elections in that year. So I do wish Mr. Marjan all the best in his position, and I hope that he's able to execute his duties faithfully.
Yes.
Ruto Raila on mission to charm the West. That is a story taking place on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga have stepped up the charm offensive on Western nations ahead of the August 9th elections. As Mr. Odinga plans to leave the country for the United Kingdom next week, the Deputy President returns to the country on Friday after a tour of the United States and the UK. Mr. Odinga's presidential campaign spokesperson Makau Mutua told the nation yesterday that the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate is to leave the country next week after getting the coalition's delegates nod on Saturday to vie for the presidency. Mr. Odinga is a problem solver who has thought deeply about what ails Kenya and Africa and what's needed to harvest their vast potential for our people. And if you are out there, and like me, you have been asking, why do they need to charm the Western nations? Here are the answers. Professor David Kikaya, a former ambassador and professor of international relations at the United States International University, said, given that Kenya's historic development partners are the West, it certainly is prudent that presidential aspirants elicit their confidence for continuity. Political pundits Javan Bigambo, Mark Bichache, and Dismas Mokua argue that any serious candidate requires support across the board and must also reach out to the big brothers, that is big brothers in quotes. Professor Masharia Munene of USIU describes the meetings as an old habit for potential leaders to try to assure powerful countries that they can be relied on not to rock the Western interests in Kenya. Well, there you have it. That is why every electioneering period, we see these leaders who are running for leadership positions in the country go out into the Western worlds and sit down with the leaders and maybe people of influence in those countries and, well, have the talks, such as what the Deputy President has been doing this past week.
True. And now into some matters. Diplomacy is that Uhuru urges Western nations to lift unfair Zimbabwe sanctions. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has thrown his weight behind Zimbabwe in the country's push for removal of sanctions imposed on the country. While hosting the Zimbabwean president, who is in the country for a visit, President Kenyatta termed the sanctions as unfair and urged Western countries involved to revoke them. In March last year, the US President Joe Biden renewed targeted sanctions against Zimbabwe, citing that the president was reluctant in rolling out political reforms, among other changes. And it's also good to note that the US had imposed the sanctions in 2001 during the reign of former President Robert Mugabe. Since then, financial and travel restrictions against some individuals and business entities have had a detrimental effect on the country, according to the current president. And it's also good to note that yesterday, where the president had gone to visit our Kenyan president in State House, it's good to note that there were some MOUs signed yesterday which are going to cater for various sectors between the two countries and maybe strengthen the relations between the two countries.
Well, still on the story about Zimbabwe and Kenya. There is the border fugitive runs, but the news tightens. A bit of statistics. Border crimes, that is on an inset in the on page 13. 79%. The prevalence of deaths caused by dangerous riding, which borders are responsible for, according to statistics from the police. Now, I am sure that we have seen on videos, on CCTV footage, or maybe on the dash cam footages of cars, that border riders either cross the road without looking, which goes against the law, or they ride against the traffic, which again is against the law. And whatever reasons they have for doing this, it is a dangerous practice that not only endangers their lives, but endangers the lives of the pillion passengers Zachary Nyaoga Obadia, the border operator who has been identified by police as the mastermind of a gang that sexually harassed a diplomat, leading to a nationwide crackdown by the state on the sector, was on the run last evening as detectives intensified his manhunt, deploying teams across the city and to his rural home in Kisii. Forensic analysis of the incident on Friday afternoon along Professor Wangare Maathai Road, formerly Forest Road, shows he was there at the time of the attack, even though he is registered to a border association that operates from Hazina. The furrow over the incident continued into the second day. Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa flew in on a state visit and met with President Uhuru Kenyatta at State House. There has been quite some response from the crackdown that is happening. And I'm not sure if you've seen it on social media, but I have seen some border riders wearing their reflective jackets with a printed page on the back written, "We are sorry." I'm not sure if that is a message that seeks to show that some of them are not as bad as the rest in the industry. But despite everything, either good and the bad, there has to be some regulations done on the sector.
Do you feel that the crackdown is justified?
Yes, the crackdown is justified because not only will it make the industry, that particular industry, safer for those who are in it to make an honest living, but it will also weed out those who are, disguising themselves in it. Maybe those who are criminals and are just hiding in to identify as border riders while they carry passengers and then go and rob them along the way, or maybe do something worse, or even those who have intentions of doing such a thing in the event of an accident, which is untimed. Anyone can cause an accident. And I thought that this is something that the border riders would understand, considering how much they are involved in these accidents.
And moving on to another story is that public servants are not rooting for Azimio team, says Kibicho. Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho has denied claims by Kenya Kwanza that the National Government Administration Office, Ngao, has been instructed to campaign for Azimio la Umoja. Speaking in Kerugoya, Kirinyaga County, Dr. Kibicho said that public servants cannot interfere with the mandate of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Dr. Kibicho instead accused Kenya Kwanza of sensing defeat and trying to intimidate other players, including neutral state officers. This will not scare us from work, but we want to tell them this is the time they should sell their agenda instead of mentioning my name more than 100 times in all their rallies in various parts of the country. Dr. Kibicho. Kelvin, do you think these public servants are neutral state officers currently? We have seen some of them campaigning, and you hold a CS docket.
Yeah, but that goes against the law, doesn't it?
It does.
Because the law dictates that if any public servant has an interest in a political position, then they are to vacate office and, pursue their political interests. That here they are. But then again, maybe, as we have seen in the recent past, the law seems to, in Kenya especially, seems to be kind of subjective as to those who it follows. It's something that is sad. Now, this is something that I want to get your opinion on.
Okay.
I'm tired of being forced to be careful in a man's world. That is a segment on page 13 written by Jacqueline Kubania, who says, "We are careful when we walk in town, mentally mapping our routes." She gives a bit of her story. The first time my father came to my school in a rage was not because I had failed a test or being punished for being naughty. It was because I told him that a teacher had made it a habit to call me and other girls in my class pet names like my girlfriend and my sweetheart. We were only in class 2 with gummy smiles from lost milk teeth, hair escaping from the neat plaits lovingly done by our mothers in the morning, and socks that bunched up around our ankles from frayed elastic. But already a man had found a way to let us know that we were different from the boys in our class and therefore could expect to be treated differently. Then she continues to say, "I remember getting catcalled when I was around 12 on my way home from school with my book bag straining at the straps and weighing heavily on my shoulders." Now, Judy, do you feel safe walking in the streets of whatever town, whatever part of the country, and do you have to always consider what you're wearing as a means of defense from men?
Yes. Currently, I don't think there's any woman in the country who really feels safe. And you'd also watch your dress code, because there's really a tendency of harassing women because of their dress code. And like that incident where that diplomat was harassed on Forest Road, you could hear those people saying, sijui umevaje, and they were just there, you know, harassing that lady. So I don't feel safe unless something is done, and unless it's time the government stops talking. It's time to act now. Because I was asking myself, did the government have to wait for that incident to happen for there to be a crackdown on the boda guys? There have been numerous complaints on the boda guys. So do they have to wait for something to happen so that they can implement things?
And if that incident had not been publicized, do you think we would be seeing the kind of response that we are seeing now from the government and the security agencies?
We wouldn't.
Well, there may be more than meets the eye in mystery in the Baringo banditry attacks. That is a story on page 10 of the Daily Nation, which highlights the mystery of white helicopter in Baringo banditry attacks. The Rift Valley security team is investigating claims that a helicopter has frequently been spotted landing at Corcoran Hills in Baringo County, where hundreds of armed bandits graze livestock. This is amid fears that powerful individuals might be supplying ammunition to the bandits. Locals, including police reservists, made the claim during a peace meeting that brought together the county security teams, national government administrators, and political leaders on Tuesday in Mochongoi in Baringo. Now, the residents of Baringo had previously said that they thought that the white helicopter was from the police as they were doing aerial surveys, but the teams on the ground say that that is not one of their machines. And so there is the question, what is, or rather who owns the white helicopter, and why is it roaming around and landing in places where the bandits usually graze their cattle? What is happening in Baringo?
And it seems that war on terror has been given a boost, with the city's new security center being launched yesterday. And the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism at the UN complex in Gigiri was commissioned yesterday at a ceremony attended by Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. This facility will be available for use by security agencies in East Africa to, among other things, monitor terror activities within the region. Counterterrorism officials will use the new facility to train on ways to deal with terror. Matiang'i, who was the chief guest, said the center will boost the fight against Al-Shabaab and counter violent extremism. I think this is a win for Kenya, given that this will be the center that, it will be like a command center for the whole East African region. Yes.
It is. It does sound like a win for the country. Now, before we end the newspaper review, let me just take you through the cartoon on page 16 of the Daily Nation. This shows Sonko. Well, it is distinctive. That is Sonko. And security officer, and what seems to be a scanner, like the ones that are found at the airport. And Sonko has been put through this scanner, and well, what the results display, the security officer is shouting "graft," and there's a United States flag behind him. I think it is in reference to the ban that Sonko was put on Sonko and his immediate family by the United States, claiming that because of his relation to graft that happened during his tenure in Nairobi, that he is now banned from setting foot in America, him and his immediate family.
Why is it haunting him now?
That is a good question. Although I don't think the United States has as much vested interest in Kenyan politics. I mean, to go as far as to single out one person and blame him for graft, you know, seek to punish him for graft. I think they did take their time to investigate the claims that Sonko was involved in graft before they made their decision. Yeah. But then there is no report. That is just my opinion on that.
True.
Well, that brings us to the end of the newspaper review. I will be coming back in a short while with my guests, and we will be looking at the state of economy, the truth, the lies, and the politics surrounding it. They are two familiar faces to you, and I think every time you see them on set, you know that there is a heated argument, discussion rather, that is about to happen. We will be back in a short while. My name is Kelvin Mungai.
And I am Judy Kyalo.
See you after this short break.